Late evening. A small kitchen on the 5th floor of an ordinary panel apartment building. A yellow lamp burns above the stove, and in its light, an elderly man sits at the table. In front of him is a plate, a thick slice of cooked sausage, 2 slices of white bread, a generous layer of butter on top. Next to him is a large mug of tea, into which 3 spoons of sugar have just fallen. He stirs them leisurely, the spoon clanking against the glass, and says to himself, smiling faintly, "I've eaten like this my whole life, and it's okay." Remember this phrase, and this kitchen. Remember this yellow light, and this plate. Because by the end of our conversation, this very scene will look completely different to you. Same person, same late hour, same lamp, but something different will be on the plate, and I promise to show you exactly what. And now, something worth sticking around for. Scientists who have spent years studying brain aging have come to a conclusion that frightens many. Memory decline after 50 isn't so much due to age, but to 3 foods that almost everyone eats every day. They're not considered harmful, they're served at family dinners. They're advertised as healthy and natural. Meanwhile, year after year, they quietly strangle the blood vessels in the brain and extinguish the light. And here's the most important thing. There's one ingredient, simple, cheap, it could be sitting in your fridge right now, that works just the opposite. It extinguishes that hidden fire in your head and helps your brain recover even after 50, 60, 70 years. Most people put everything on their plate except this, and that's the tragedy. Tell me honestly, have you ever caught yourself doing this? You've walked into a room and forgotten why. You've held your keys in your hand, and a minute later you're searching for them all over the apartment. The name of a familiar person is on the tip of your tongue, but you can't find it. A word you've known for 40 years has suddenly disappeared, and a chill runs through your gut. What if this is the beginning? That's what we'll talk about today. Who are these 3 silent memory destroyers you most likely ate today? Why are natural and healthy foods sometimes more dangerous than the downright harmful? What's the secret ingredient almost no one puts on their plate? And why does one of these foods do its worst damage not during the day, but at night while you sleep? We'll definitely get to that. And before we name the first killer, please do one thing. Write one word in the comments. I'm listening. Just so I know you're here and ready to see this through to the end. Because at the end, that very scene in the kitchen awaits you, and a decision that could change the next 20 years of your life. To understand how all this works, we need to meet a man who has dedicated his entire life to the brain. Her name was Natalia Bekhtereva. Granddaughter of the great Vladimir Bekhtereva, she directed the Human Brain Institute for decades and saw from the inside what almost no one else on Earth had ever seen. The living human brain. Not a picture in a textbook, a real, functioning, thinking organ during operations and the most delicate research. And it was she who, for years, repeated an idea that, in Soviet times, sounded almost seditious. The brain is not programmed to fade. It doesn't have to dim on a schedule, like a light bulb about to expire. The brain is plastic. It is capable of building new connections at 60, 70, and even later, as long as a person doesn't betray it. How are we betraying it? Bekhtereva looked deeper than the pill craze and spoke of simple and unpleasant things. The brain is the body's most voracious organ. It weighs just over 1 kilogram, yet consumes about 1/5 of all the energy you receive. It is composed primarily of fat. It is riddled with vessels that carry blood to every thought, every memory. And what you put on your plate is the very material from which your memories and your clarity of mind are built. Here's her key idea, which makes today's conversation worth listening to the end. Bekhtereva was against prohibitions and self-abuse. She didn't believe in strict diets that make you suffer and fail. She believed in something else, smart substitution. Not throwing everything out with a fuss and guilt, but quietly replacing the destructive with the healing. One product after another, one breakfast after another. And you know what's so ironic? Those same 3 foods that slowly kill your brain are most often served under the guise of self-care. People sincerely try to eat properly and like everyone else, and that's precisely how they dig themselves into trouble. They don't have a sweet tooth. They don't gorge themselves on fast food. They eat what the rest of the country has been eating for decades. And that's the main trap. So who are these three? You'll find out now. And we'll start with the most cunning one, the one hiding where you least expect him. The first silent destroyer is sugar, but not the one you're thinking of. You're probably chuckling right now. But I'm not a sweet tooth. I don't eat candy. I don't buy cakes. And that's the whole point. The most dangerous sugar isn't hiding in plain sight in the candy dish. It's hiding where no one looks, and so it does its work undetected for years. Take a look at your table. Sweet tea, 3 spoonfuls at a time, like that guy in the kitchen. Store-bought juice that looks like it's packed with vitamins, but is actually a glass of liquid sugar. Ready-made sauces, ketchup, mayonnaise, they even add sugar to salty foods. White bread and loaves of bread, which almost instantly turn into sugar in the body. Cookies for tea, which don't seem to count. Each piece individually is a trifle, but together, over the course of a day, it adds up to a dose that literally sends your brain reeling. Here's what's going on inside you, explaining why you feel this way. You eat something sweet, your blood sugar skyrockets. Your body panics, releasing a hormone to bring it down, and your blood sugar plummets just as sharply. This seesaw, up and down, is hard on your brain. Remember that weird feeling an hour after drinking sweet tea and a bun? You feel sleepy, your thoughts are cloudy, your head is foggy, and you want to eat something again. It's not laziness or age, it's your brain that's gone downhill. And now comes the worst part. Excess sugar in the blood behaves like rust. It literally sugars the body's proteins, making them hard, brittle, and unusable. Scientists call this a process that ages blood vessels and tissues from the inside. Imagine rust corroding metal. This is roughly what sugar does to the finest blood vessels in your brain, year after year. And the brain only survives because these vessels reliably deliver blood and oxygen. Here's a paradox for you. A person eats a lot, feels full, but their brain is starving because the blood vessels, corroded by sugar, can no longer properly feed it. A feast is on the table, but up above, in the head, there's a starvation diet. And remember one more thing, which we'll come back to. Sugar does its most destructive damage not during the day, but at night, when you're already asleep and thinking you're resting. I'll talk about this later, and it will change your perception of evening tea and cookies. And right now, so that this knowledge doesn't dissolve like sugar in that mug, make a choice with words. Write in the comments, I choose a clear mind. Not someday, but today. But for you to truly feel how it all ends, I need to take you to an office. There, at the desk, sat a man very similar to the one from the kitchen, and the conversation that took place there changed everything. An office. Large windows, a gray autumn day beyond. At the desk is a 63-year-old man, Viktor Sergeyevich, a large, confident figure, the kind of man used to making his own decisions. But his hands are in his lap, and his fingers tremble slightly. Across from him is a doctor who has just finished questioning him about his memory. Doctor, Viktor Sergeyevich says, his voice suddenly breaking. My mother passed away like that. At first, she forgot names. Then she stopped recognizing me. By the end, she couldn't remember how to hold a spoon. I've lived with this fear my whole life. It's hereditary, right? That means I'll end up the same way, no matter what I do. The doctor is silent for a few seconds. Then he asks a question Viktor Sergeyevich is completely surprised by. Viktor Sergeyevich, what did you eat this morning? The man blinks in confusion. What does breakfast have to do with such a terrible disease? But he answers. Sweet coffee, 2 spoons of sugar, a sandwich with sausage and butter, cookies, a glass of juice, 4 vitamins. And the doctor nods as if he'd heard exactly what he expected. You see, he says, genes really do load the gun, that's true, and I won't lie to you. But it's lifestyle that pulls the trigger. What you've been putting on your plate every morning for 40 years now. Silence falls over the office. And in this silence, Viktor Sergeyevich slowly realizes something that makes him go cold inside. All these years, he's feared his mother's fate as something inevitable, creeping up from without. But it turns out, he feeds this fear with his own hands every morning. He holds the match to the wick and waits in terror for the explosion. So, he swallows, I did it myself? With my own hands? And that, the doctor says softly, is actually good news. Because what you do yourself, you can stop doing yourself. The gun is loaded, but your finger is on the trigger. Viktor Sergeyevich sits, staring into space, and for the first time in many years, a crack appears in his fear, through which something new is breaking through. Not a death sentence, an opportunity. If you recognize yourself in this, your fear, your heredity, your morning sandwiches, write in the comments, I'll be fine. Say it out loud to yourself, because the finger on the trigger is truly yours. Viktor Sergeyevich left that office a changed man, and we'll move on, because we've named the first destroyer, and remember, there are 3 of them. And the second one is waiting for us on the store shelf. It pretends to be food even more convincingly than sugar. Anna Dmitrievna lived alone, 71 years old, with a quiet apartment and a daughter who had grown up in another city. And for the past year, her daughter had become increasingly silent during every call. And one day, thinking her mother couldn't hear, she whispered 2 words into the receiver to someone nearby. Nursing home. Anna Dmitrievna heard. But I'll stop here at the most important point, because first, you need to understand what exactly drove her to this. And the answer is right there on the plate. The second silent destroyer is processed meat and the trans fats hidden in it. And here's the insidious part. It doesn't look unhealthy. On the contrary, it looks like prosperity, like normal food, like something you treat guests to. Sausages and hot dogs, homemade, smoked meats for the holidays, cheap convenience foods, packaged cutlets that come in handy when you don't have the energy to cook, store-bought baked goods made with margarine, cookies, waffles, cakes with cream that doesn't melt. All of this seems like food. But in reality, it's a shock to the blood vessels, disguised as pleasure. What do they put in there? First, a huge amount of salt. It's added to make the product last longer and enhance its flavor. Second, trans fats, processed vegetable oils that act like glue in the body. And this pair, salt and trans fats, work hand in hand against your brain. Over the years, salt increases blood pressure and forces the heart to pump blood through the vessels with excessive force, and the tiny blood vessels in the brain can't withstand this pressure. Trans fats, meanwhile, settle on their walls, narrowing the passageway through which life flows to the brain. Imagine an old pipe that gradually becomes encrusted with scale. The flow weakens, the pressure increases, and eventually the pipe gives way. And the most vile thing here is that a person feels nothing. There is no pain, no alarm. It's just that year after year, the same food that everyone else eats quietly narrows the path to your thoughts. Anna Dmitrievna ate exactly like that, sparingly, habitually, as is customary. Cheap sausage, pre-cooked food to save time, salty things for tea. She believed she was taking care of herself. But in reality, every day she narrowed the riverbed that carried blood to her memory. That's why I say, what doesn't look dangerous can be especially dangerous. An open enemy forces you to defend yourself, but this one comes disguised as a friend, sits down at the table with you, and works from the inside. And before we return to Anna Dmitrievna and how her story ended, tell yourself this. Write in the comments, I take care of my blood vessels. These aren't just empty words, they're the first step toward opening the blood supply back to your brain. Now let me show you exactly how these two, salt and trans fats, are choking your brain. Because the number you're about to learn will completely change your understanding of your own body. 600,000 kilometers. Remember that number. That's how long it would be if you laid out all the blood vessels in your body in a single line. It would be enough to circle the globe 15 times at the equator. And a huge, vital part of this invisible network nourishes the brain, delivering blood, oxygen, and food to every memory. Now imagine that this entire gigantic network is lined on the inside with a thin, living layer of cells. Scientists call it the endothelium, but it's easier to think of it as the delicate, living lining of the blood vessels, smooth, slippery, through which blood flows easily and freely. As long as this lining is intact and healthy, the brain is well-fed and clear-headed. As soon as it's damaged, trouble begins. And this is where salt and trans fats do their work. Salt keeps blood pressure high for years, and blood rushes through this delicate lining with excessive force, like water against a dam that's been overwhelmed. This causes the walls to harden, lose their smoothness, and develop microcracks. And trans fats are just waiting for this to happen. They stick to the damaged areas, build up in layers, and narrow the passage. The path where blood used to flow freely to thought turns into a narrow path. What does a person feel? At first, almost nothing. Then, that same fog. It becomes harder to concentrate, names slip away, and by evening, the head feels heavy as cast iron. It's not just tired or just old age. It's a brain starved because the riverbed that fed it has become overgrown. But here's why I started this conversation. This living lining of the vessels isn't stone. It's alive, and that means it can regenerate. Remove what's destroying it, and within weeks and months it begins to heal. The vessels become flexible again. The lumen opens, and the blood returns to where it's long been awaited. The body can repair itself. You just have to stop breaking it. And this is precisely what Anna Dmitrievna proved. Her story demonstrates what the brain is capable of when it's finally freed from interference. We'll return to it now. But first, pause and write one word for your future self. Recovering. Because what seems like the end is often just a fork in the road. Let's return to Anna Dmitrievna, to that quiet apartment, to the telephone receiver, and to two words she heard even though she shouldn't have. Nursing home. The daughter whispered this to someone nearby, covering the receiver with her hand. And Anna Dmitrievna sat in the kitchen with the receiver to her ear, feeling the floor shift beneath her feet. So it had come to this. So her own daughter no longer believed her mother could cope on her own. And the scariest thing was that a quiet voice inside whispered, she was right. Because Anna Dmitrievna noticed it herself. She'd put the kettle on and forget she'd put it on. She'd go to the pharmacy and stand by the entrance, not remembering which way to go. And yesterday, she couldn't remember the name of the neighbor she'd been greeting for 20 years. Each such incident was like a small pebble, and from these pebble-shaped stones, a wall formed, behind which that very same house with the government-issued walls awaited her. That evening, she didn't sleep. And the next morning, she did something no one expected of her. She didn't give up. She went to the doctor, not for a miracle pill, but for the truth. And the doctor, after listening to her, didn't threaten her with diagnoses. He asked about food. And when Anna Dmitrievna listed her typical day, sweet tea, cheaper sausage, processed foods, salty store-bought cookies, he told her almost the same thing he'd told Viktor Sergeyevich, that the riverbed feeding her brain was overgrown, but that the riverbed could be cleared. He didn't tell her to starve and suffer. He asked for a simple thing, to swap one thing for another every morning. Remove the sweet breakfast and replace it with another. Instead of sausage, fish. Instead of cookies, a handful of nuts. Not heroism, but a quiet, daily change, just like Bekhtereva. And Anna Dmitrievna began to change, day after day, without fanaticism, without falling into guilt, just a different plate in the morning. A month passed, then a second, and one day she caught herself doing something she hadn't done for a long time. She remembered her neighbor's name immediately, without a painful pause. Then that the kettle had boiled, and she took it off just in time. Then the way to the pharmacy, without fear at the entrance. The fog in her head thinned, as if someone were slowly opening a damper and letting in the light. 6 months later, her daughter called with the same cautious, searching voice, and she didn't recognize her mother. Anna Dmitrievna spoke clearly, remembered everything, and joked. At the end of the conversation, her daughter fell silent, then quietly said, "Mom, you seem different. Alive." And there was no more mention of a nursing home. Ever. That's what it means the brain is alive. That's what it means the channel can be cleared. If Anna Dmitrievna's story resonated with you, write her one word through the screen. Thank you. And to yourself, a promise. I can do it too. Because you can. But we've only named 2 of the destroyers. The third is the most insidious, because it's considered the healthiest breakfast in the world. The third silent killer is the sugary breakfast, the very one that's been touted for decades as a model of self-care. Think about how we were taught to start our day. Instant porridge from a packet, pour boiling water over it, and it's ready. Ready to eat cereals and cereal pillows that crunch so joyfully. White bread with jam or honey, glazed curd cheese, sweet cottage cheese, a glass of store-bought juice for energy. All of this has been labeled a healthy breakfast since childhood. But in reality, it's a sugar rush to the brain at the most vulnerable moment of the day. Why is this especially dangerous in the morning? Because you haven't eaten the night before. By morning, your blood sugar is low, even and calm. Your brain is like a blank slate, ready for the bright day. And at this fragile moment, you indulge in sweets. Your sugar soars like a rocket. An hour later, it drops just as sharply. And instead of a vibrant morning, you experience those same swings from the very start. By 10 o'clock, you're foggy, heavy, sleepy, and craving something else sweet. You've barely woken up, and your brain is already on a roller coaster. Herein lies the trap. A sweet breakfast doesn't seem like an enemy. It seems like care. A mother feeds it to her children. A person is sure they're starting the day right. But in reality, every morning, with their own hands, they light a match, just like Viktor Sergeyevich in the doctor's office. And they do it with the feeling that they're doing the right thing. And now for the reason I've kept this secret until now. Remember, at the very beginning, I said that sugar does its most destructive work not during the day, but at night? Here's the answer. When you sleep, your brain isn't idle, it's cleaning. At night, it cleans itself out, clearing out the accumulated debris of the day, the very same harmful debris that contributes to forgetfulness and senile dementia over the years. This is its nighttime sanitation service, and it only operates in a clean, calm environment. But if you've had a sweet treat before bed, and many people drink sweet tea and cookies in the evening, your blood sugar fluctuates all night. Your body is busy trying to calm the fluctuations, and nighttime cleaning is a shambles. The junk remains. Morning after morning, evening after evening, year after year, it accumulates. That's why sugar affects your memory precisely during sleep. You thought you were resting, but in reality, you were preventing your brain from saving itself. Got it? Then solidify it with a resolution. Write it down right now. My breakfast works for me. Tomorrow morning, you'll remember these words, and it will be a different morning. So we've named all 3: hidden sugar, processed meat with trans fats and salt, and a sugary breakfast that batters your brain even at night. Now you know your enemy, but knowing your enemy is only half the battle. So what is there? Where's that secret ingredient I promised at the beginning, the one almost no one puts on their plate? I'll tell you now, and you'll be surprised at how simple it is, and how likely it is already right here with you. This ingredient is a special type of fat, essential for brain health. It's called omega-3. And before you dismiss it as just another trendy supplement, stop. This isn't some expensive exotica or some powder from a jar. It's a common food that graced our ancestors' tables for centuries, then quietly faded away, replaced by sugar and sausage. Remember what the brain is made of. It's almost 60% fat. Not sugar, not sausage, fat. And omega-3 is the very building material that makes up the membranes of brain cells, where your thoughts flow and memories are stored. Without it, the brain literally has nothing left to repair. What do these fats do? They do 3 things at once, and each one specifically targets our 3 enemies. They extinguish the hidden internal fire smoldering in our blood vessels from sugar and trans fats. They make the blood more fluid, allowing it to flow more easily through the brain's vessels, opening up that very same clogged channel. And they repair cell membranes, building new connections, that very plasticity Bekhtereva spoke of. Where can we get them? In fatty fish, herring, mackerel, sardines, salmon. In walnuts, in flaxseed, in simple, accessible, inexpensive foods that require no recipes or overseas stores. And here's the tragedy we started with. People put sausage, cookies, sweet juice, anything but this simple fish on their plates. Enemies are on the table every day, and the savior is only on holidays, or never at all. Think of it this way. Enemies, sugar, trans fats, salt, pour fuel into your brain every day, setting it ablaze. And omega-3s are both fuel for the fire and building blocks. And as long as you feed the fire 3 times a day, no amount of water from above will save you. But stop fueling it and start carrying water, and the fire recedes, and your brain begins to rebuild itself from the ashes. This is the key I promised at the beginning. Simple, inexpensive, the one many people have lying around in their fridges, unused. If you've realized what you've been missing all these years, write down, "I'll add this to my plate." And then I'll show you exactly how to do it. No diets, no struggle, just 3 simple steps anyone can do. That's where we'll start. So, 3 simple steps, not a diet, not a feat, 3 quiet changes that anyone can make, even if you're 70 and your arms aren't what they used to be. Step 1. Rethink your breakfast. This is the most important step because it's in the morning that you set the tone for your brain for the entire day. Eliminate the sugary ingredients, packaged porridge, cereal, white bread with jam, glazed cheese curds, store-bought juice. Replace them with things that don't spike your sugar levels: eggs, regular slow-cooked oatmeal, unsweetened cottage cheese, a handful of nuts. Remember Anna Dmitrievna? She started with exactly that, just breakfast. And a month later, she remembered her neighbor's name. Breakfast is where everything starts. Step 2. Include fish in your week. Not every day, not heroically. 2 or 3 times a week, include fatty fish, herring, mackerel, sardines, salmon. This is the omega-3 you need, water for the fire, and bricks for construction. If you don't like fish, try a handful of walnuts a day, or a spoonful of flaxseed in your porridge. It's pennies compared to what you spent on sausage, but the benefits are incomparably greater. Step 3. Clear your evening. Remember your nightly brain-cleaning routine? Stop feeding it sweets before bed. Evening tea with cookies, a candy before bed, a sugary snack in front of the TV. These are what prevent your brain from cleaning itself out at night. Simply eliminate sugar from the last hours of the day. Give your brain a restful night, and it will thank you with a clear morning. That's it. 3 steps. Sort out breakfast, let the fish in, clear out the evening. No fasting, no scales, no charts. Exactly the smart replacement Bekhtereva talked about. Don't fight yourself, but quietly exchange the destructive for the healing, 1 plate at a time. And you know what's most important? You don't have to do everything at once. Start with 1 thing, tomorrow. Start with 1 morning. If you're ready to take that first step, write down right now, "Tomorrow, I will start with breakfast." That will be your first brick. But I hear the objection that's swirling around in many people's heads right now. It's too late. I'm already over 70. What can I change now? Let's talk about that separately, because that's the most dangerous lie you can tell yourself. It's too late. How many lives have been ruined by these 2 words? A person learns the truth and immediately dismisses it. I'm 70, 65. What's the point? The train has left the station. And continues to feed the fire. But that's not true, and science has proven it. Remember where we started, with Natalia Bekhtereva and her key idea. The brain is plastic. It builds new connections at 60, 70, and even later. It doesn't look at your passport. It looks at what you put on your plate today. That living lining of the blood vessels we talked about begins to heal weeks after you stop wounding it at any age. The body doesn't know the word late. Only we know that. and in vain. Remember Anna Dmitrievna, 71 years old. Her daughter was already whispering about a nursing home. By any measure, it was too late. But she started with one breakfast, and 6 months later, her own daughter didn't recognize her voice. It had become so clear and alive. If Anna Dmitrievna had said too late to herself, she'd now be sitting in a prison cell, unable to remember her own name. But she said, "I'll try." And that was enough. Here's the truth, more valuable than any pill. Every breakfast you take is a vote. You vote for either fog or clarity. You either light a match, like Viktor Sergeyevich once did, or you bring water to the fire. And you vote not just once in your life, but 3 times a day, every day. Which means you can start any day with a different vote, be it today, be it tomorrow. Think about what's at stake, not some abstract health, but very specific things. Remembering your grandson's name without a painful pause, not searching for your keys all over the apartment, maintaining that sparkle in your eyes that lets loved ones know you're still you. Remaining the person people come to for advice, not the one they keep an eye on. That's what you gain in 3 simple steps, and that's what you lose when you tell yourself it's too late. So let's cross out those 2 words right now. Write another one in their place. It's never too late. Say it out loud. This isn't a slogan, it's the truth, confirmed by both science and Anna Dmitrievna's story. Now I want you to imagine something. Not yourself today, but who you will become in 6 months if you start tomorrow. Let's take a look there together. Close your eyes for a second. No, don't close them. Finish reading, and then imagine. 6 months have passed. The same 3 steps, quietly, without strain, day after day. And this is the morning that awaits you. You wake up and your head is free of the cottony fog you're used to. Your thoughts are clear and light, like in your youth. You get up and you don't have to remember what you were going to do. You just remember. The phone rings, you hear a voice, and the name comes to you instantly, without that humiliating pause when you painfully rummage through your memory in front of someone. You go about your business and your hands know where your keys are, where your glasses are, where your money is. You tell your grandchildren a story from your life and you remember every detail, and they listen with their mouths open because you are alive, interesting, and clear. In the evening, you read a page of a book and remember what it was about. You are not afraid to forget to turn off the stove. You trust yourself again. And most importantly, the look of your loved ones. Remember Anna Dmitrievna's daughter who said, "You're alive?" That look. When they look at you not with worry and pity, but with respect and warmth. When they come to you for advice, not to be watched over. When you are the head of the family, a support, not a caretaker. This is the life that 3 simple steps can restore. And now another scene. That same kitchen from the very beginning. The yellow lamp, late evening. Remember the man at the table? Sausage, white bread with butter, 3 spoons of sugar in his tea, and the phrase, "I've been eating like this my whole life and nothing happened"? Now look at this scene with new eyes. You know what's really on that plate. Not food, but a match to the wick. Hidden sugar that sends your brain reeling and interferes with nightly cleaning. Sausage with trans fats and salt that year after year narrows the riverbed that feeds your thoughts. And nothing? That's not true. It's just that the fog hasn't yet thickened enough to frighten you. But it thickens, every evening, with every plate like that. And here it is, the choice that was the focus of our entire conversation. The same kitchen, the same lamp, the same late hour. But something different is on the plate. A piece of mackerel instead of sausage. Tea without sugar. A handful of nuts instead of cookies. The same man, but now he doesn't hold a match to the wick. He carries water to the fire. And in 6 months, he will have that same clear morning, not the road to a prison cell. 2 plates, 2 futures. And you choose between them not just once, but every evening, every morning, with your own hands. If you choose the second plate, the second future, a clear morning, and the respectful gaze of your loved ones, write this decision down right now so that it becomes real. I choose a clear future. There's just one thing left to say, the shortest and most important. Something worth staying for another minute. Let's gather everything we've learned. Not to repeat it, but so that it becomes firmly ingrained in your memory, like a foundation you'll build on tomorrow morning at the stove. We started with a simple and terrifying thought. What you put on your plate is more important than your genes. Genes load the gun. That's what the doctor told Viktor Sergeyevich. But your finger is on the trigger. And we remembered Natalia Bekhtereva and her key discovery. The brain is alive. The brain is plastic. It builds new connections at any age, if you let it be and feed it. Then we named 3 silent destroyers that have been masquerading as food and care for years. The first is hidden sugar, which sends your brain into overdrive and accumulates junk, hindering your nightly cleanup. The second is processed meat with trans fats and salt, which year after year narrows the riverbed of the 600,000 kilometers of vessels that carry blood to your thoughts. The third is a sugary breakfast, the most insidious, because it's considered healthy, but it assaults your brain from the very morning and robs it of its nightly self-cleansing. And then we found the savior that sits unused in many people's refrigerators, omega-3, fatty fish, nuts, flaxseed, water for the fire, and bricks for the building at the same time. And we saw the full tragedy. Enemies on the table every day, and the savior only on holidays or never. And finally, 3 simple steps. Change your breakfast. Include fish 2 or 3 times a week. Clear your evenings of sweets so your brain can calmly cleanse itself at night. It's not a diet, not a feat. A quiet, daily change, just like Bekhtereva. That's the whole map. Enemies, savior, 3 steps. If you've read this far, you already know more than 9 out of 10 people sitting down to dinner tonight. Reinforce it. Right, I understand everything, and I'll begin. But before we part, I must tell you one more thing, perhaps the most important of all. Because there is one trap that almost everyone who learns such a truth falls into, and I don't want you to fall into it. That's the trap. A person listens to the end, nods, and thinks, how true, how important, I'll definitely get to it. And then gets up, goes to the kitchen, and pours himself the same sweet tea and slices the same sausage. Because knowledge without action is just pretty words that will melt away by morning. Knowing 3 steps and not taking any is like knowing the way out of a dark forest and ending up sitting on a stump. The most dangerous thing isn't sugar or sausage. The most dangerous thing is tomorrow's "I'll start on Monday" that never comes. That's the real enemy. Not food, but eternal procrastination, beneath which the fog quietly thickens. So let's not put it off. Not from Monday, not from the 1st of the month, not whenever I get around to it, but from the next meal. If it's evening, clear this evening. Have unsweetened tea and, instead of cookies, a handful of nuts. If morning is ahead, let breakfast be different. One single meal. Everything else begins with it. Think of Anna Dmitrievna one last time. She too could have said, I'll start later. But she started with one breakfast and regained her memory, her daughter's respect, and her life itself. And Viktor Sergeyevich could have continued to fear his mother's fate as a death sentence, but he learned that his finger was on the trigger, and he released it. They didn't wait for Monday. And neither should you. You have everything you need in your hands now. You know your enemies by sight. You know your savior. You know the 3 steps. One thing is missing, the first movement of the hand, the very one that separates those who will greet the clear morning in 6 months from those who will sit on a stump and repeat, I need to get to work. So do it. Right now, without even getting up, make a decision and put it into words, because what's spoken and written becomes real. Write this final, most important thing. I start taking care of my brain starting today. And when you write this, don't close it right away. Look at your words. These aren't just letters. This is a vote for your clarity, for your memory, for that morning in 6 months when your grandson's name will come to you without a pause. This is the first brick of a house in which you will remain yourself until the very end. You've just laid it. And then, just keep going. Step by step, plate by plate, morning by morning. The brain is alive. It's not expecting a heroic feat from you, but one simple change today. Make it, and it will begin to repair itself, quietly and gratefully, as only a living thing can. Take care of your head. It's the only place where your whole life lives, all the names, all the faces, all the roads, all the stories you'll tell your